In this lecture, we're going to look at configuring an email server. And when you say you're going to configure an email server, you're really talking about multiple components. And we just need to understand a little bit of what those components are before we move on. There's a couple of different things you usually talk about when you discuss email servers and email servers in general. Let me get there it goes. Get the pointer back up here. Okay, we have really three entities we're going to be dealing with. We have something called an MTA, or a mail transfer agent, an MDA, or a mail delivery agent, and then an MUA, or a mail user agent. When we talk about MTAs, what we're discussing at that point are the servers. Let me get rid of this annoying pointer. There we go. We're talking about the servers on the internet that transfer email between them. They're not responsible for delivering email to an end user. Their only function is to actually exchange email between other MTAs. Popular ones that you will see out there are SendMail. Whoops, come on. Exchange, Postfix, and many others. Once again, they only exchange email between other MTAs, so we configure them to transfer mail between other MTAs. They are not responsible for getting the mail to the end user. Now, the MDA, that service is responsible for actually delivering the mail to the end user. So for instance, if we have a little network over here, and here I am on my laptop, and I'm running Outlook, let's say, on my laptop. Well, Outlook would be considered an MUA, or the mail user agent. That's the piece of software that I configure to communicate with the MDA. And MDAs, there's any number of MDAs out there. The one we're going to be looking at is something called Doevcot. And you may not have heard of Doevcot, but you've heard of the services that it provides. Whoops, lost my... There it goes. So an MDA would be a device configured to deliver mail, right? It communicates with the MTA, and it is the service that actually ends up delivering the mail to the end user. So an MDA, once again, we'll be looking at configuring Doevcot, but the services that they're providing are things like POP3, and IMAP. Those two protocols are services that help deliver mail to the end user. The big difference between POP and IMAP is that POP actually downloads the mail to the local device. So if I configure POP, typically POP would get my mail from the MDA, download it to my laptop, and literally delete it from the spool on the server. So there would be no longer mail on the server, it would only be on this one device. That's a bit of a limitation, especially if you're using multiple computers throughout the day. IMAP, on the other hand, IMAP allows us to connect and transfer email from a server while leaving copies of that on the server. So we always have access no matter where we are. If we go over to another computer and configure it to connect to the server, IMAP allows us to download, once again, or access the emails that are on that server. POP can be configured to do that, but usually what it'll do is download it to one device. So you may end up with some mail on this device and then some mail on another device if you have another one, like a tablet or something like that. So IMAP is really the type of protocol we'd like to use when configuring our MDA. So once again, MUA, things like Outlook and Mail, iMail, and Evolution and Linux and things like that. MDAs, Cyrus, there's a handful of them out there. And MTAs are things like SendMail, Postfix, and many, many others. So we're actually going to walk through the steps of configuring all three of these and getting them working on our network. All right, so there are two things we need to install on our server, and then we'll need to configure them, and then we'll need to set up DNS also. So maybe we should do that first. So let's go ahead and VI into var/named, and let's edit our zone file. And what we're going to do, first thing we're going to do is add a new type of record, an MX record or a mail exchange record to the zone. So it identifies this server as a mail server. So I'll just yank that, go over here, whoops. Change that from NS to MX, and I'll put a 10 next to it. The 10 is a priority. If we have multiple servers, we can set different priorities on those servers of which ones will be used first in order. So the 10 represents a priority for our particular server. Get out of that. And next what we'll do is add a couple more CNAMEs. So I'll change that. And the first one I'm going to put in here is SMTP, because remember, SMTP is the mail delivery protocol. This is the protocol that MTAs use, right, to transfer mail between other MTAs. So this is the typical delivery, mail delivery, or I should say, this is where I send my outgoing email, is to a server that's acting as an SMTP server using one of the MTA applications. And then I'll call this one IMAP, because that's the service we're going to use. So we created two CNAMEs, SMTP and IMAP, that will go back and resolve for our .myslcc.org zone. Alright, so let's save that. And what we'll do is a named check zone, and myslcc.org var. We just want to make sure, and we should have updated the zone, but we're not exchanging with another DNS server, so I didn't bother doing that. But really, if you're doing this, we're doing this on the master server. If we have slave servers, which you will have, right, you should always update your zone number so that the slaves know that something has changed. And we should be able to dig imap.myslcc.org. Oh, you know what we didn't do? Didn't restart the name server, reload it. Let's try that again. Alright, a lot better that time. So we're resolving our new names, which is great. The next thing we're going to do is download and install Postfix. Now, Postfix is probably already installed on your machine. If it isn't, just download it with the yum utility. So you could just do yum install Postfix. Right, that would work. But Postfix is installed, and I can check its status, and it should be installed on yours too by default. Postfix. And I can see it's running. So I'm going to stop it because we're going to go through and edit it. So I would recommend that you stop it. Now, the one thing I will tell you about email, it's probably one of the more complex services to have to set up. You're dealing with multiple entities that you have to set up to make it work properly. The configuration files can be very daunting. As a matter of fact, probably the most popular email server out in the world is SendMail, which is an older MTA, or it's a very established MTA. It's probably the most popular one out there, but it's the most complex one to set up also. And that's why I've chosen to work with Postfix. But even saying that, Postfix is challenging to set up itself, and there are many parameters that you have to go through to actually set it up. So what I've done, I'm not going to step through each and every single one of the commands. What I've done is I've created a file. I'll show you what I've created. Here's a PDF version of the file, and it basically tells you using VI. In the example that I have here, I'm using VI. It tells you to open a particular file. In this instance, it's main.cf. That's the main configuration file for Postfix. It tells you what line you're going to either uncomment or add information to it. So you're looking for line 75 in the file. You're looking for the parameter my host equals, and then you're going to put in your host information. And then the next one goes through, and let me zoom in a little bit here. The next line is line 83. You'll uncomment and specify a domain name, and then you'll just keep going through each line of the file. That's one way to do it, right? And if you're comfortable with VI, you can use VI. You can do something similar with Nano. So I could, and I just found this out, so Nano with a C option. And then if I said etc postfix main CF and opened it up, as I move through, and as you can tell I can't move, as I move through the file, you'll see the number of the line I'm on changing. So there are almost 700 lines of information in this file. I'm on line 6, moving my way down. So you could use Nano to accomplish this also. So VI, if we're at VI, oops, let's get out of there. Control X, don't save. If it's VI, I can just use that set NU, that will open it up. And if you want to move quickly, so if I tell you to go through line, let's say 97, what you can do is type 97 and then Shift G, and that will take you to line 97 in the file. So VI allows you to move a little bit faster. So you can go to each line and edit those lines based on what I'm telling you to do in the file. You're going to do this for Postfix, and you're going to do this for Doevcot, the MDA. And there's quite a bit of typing going on in here. It's a 700 line file. There's lots of parameters we can put in here. Cut and paste will help if you can get it working, but once again, you have to be concerned about typos and spurious characters when doing this. what I have here, this setup that I have here that I'm showing you is exactly what I have configured. I tested it twice. It's funny. I did this for a class, I think last fall or last spring, and I used CentOS 5 at the time to do it. And, I came back in here going through the typical way I did it before, and it ends up that, they've changed so many different things in Postfix and Doevcot that the way I changed it up before did not work. So I had to retool everything to make it work again. That's definitely one of the challenges of working with any operating system. When updates come, things change, and you have to be able to change with them. But this file and the Doevcot file completely work on CentOS 6, our copy of CentOS 6, how it's set up with us right now. So I verified that, like I said, a couple of times. So please, if you're getting error messages, if you can't connect, read your information, read your logs. It's probably a typo, or you left out a space, or you threw in a character that wasn't supposed to be there. You forgot the $ here. Any number of things can happen when configuring something like this, but you have a document that shows you exactly how it should be configured. Just go back and verify the information that you have with that. Now, I will show you there's another way to do this, and it really is up to you how you want to accomplish it. You can go through each of the lines in the file, right? And you can go to line 97, change it. Say, go to line 300, change it, and save it. You can go through the file like that. Now, Postfix does allow you, I'll get out of this, to use the postconf command. So what does that do? I'll show you. So if I type postconf and then E for edit and put 2 single quotes, anything I put in between those quotes will be added to my file. So for instance, I'll go over here and I'll grab something like this. So this right here. You can type it in, of course. You don't have to cut and paste it, but now I will tell you that sometimes, see, here's a little bit of a problem. Look what's happening here. There's an extra space going on there. There's not supposed to be all those spaces. That kind of stuff will drive your files insane. But this literally, line by line, will edit it. So this is nice because I don't have to know exactly what line I want to edit. I just have to put in the information. Postconf parses the main CF file and adds it in the proper order. So that's nice. You can do it this way if you want to. So you have 2 options. Open the file in your favorite editor and edit each line specified in my directions, or use the postconf command with the -E in single quotes, put the exact command in there, once again being very, very aware of typos, letters that weren't put in correctly, so you can configure it. Okay. Let me get out of that. So once you have that all configured, what you want to do is you can actually run a postfix check, and that'll come back and check your file to see if there's anything glaring in there. So you can check it that way. It doesn't always mean everything's going to work, but you can try it. After that, so now that you've done everything, you've configured it, you want to make sure that it's restarted. And if you didn't stop it, you want to restart it. So let's see, init.d, postfix, start. Once again, we're looking for any error messages that may be coming up. You can check var log messages, any of the other logs that are associated with it. But as long as you're following the syntax that I have in that file, you should be perfectly fine. Okay, and we can type netstat -nltp, and we'll grep for 25, because 25 is the port that the system will be listening on for SMTP connections. And we can see we're listening on all interfaces, right, for SMTP connections coming in. You can specify it for just one interface, but let's just let it go with all interfaces for right now, just to get it configured and working. Okay, so we see it's listening. The next thing we want to do is to get Doevcot installed. So what you'll do is yum, because this is definitely not on here right now, yum install yes Doevcot. There's a few of these out. There's many different ones we can use, but this is probably the easiest one to set up. So we'll install that. I already have. After it's installed, you're going to have to edit the file. This one, there's no way of inputting the information in from the command line, streaming it in as you will. You actually have to edit the file. So Doevcot conf. And there's actually a couple of files in here that you have to edit. So it's not just one file, and this is the one that really threw me off. Doevcot, the last time I configured it, only about 10 months ago, was completely different than the way it is right now. So I'll close that, and I'll open up the Doevcot one that I have. There we go. And we'll zoom in. So there are a couple of different files. You'll start out editing doevcot.conf. You'll change the information that you see. So in line 31, you only have to change one piece of information. Then you're going to edit etc doevcot /confd/10auth, the auth configuration file, and you're going to change a couple of parameters in there. And next you're going to edit under the confd directory 10.mail.conf, and you're going to add some information in there or uncomment it. And then lastly, you're going to edit 10.master.conf and add some information in there, and then you're going to start Doevcot up and do a check config to make sure it comes up. So I'll just take you through and show you. So here is where the default file is, right? So one of the first things I did in there, and I think I left it out there, you want to make sure that it's responding for protocols. In this case, we're going to leave it at IMAP and POP3. We're going to be configuring IMAP, but POP3 is something that's available. It's not going to interfere with us. If we don't want it, we can just take it off of there. And so then here's the one that changed the parameters about where to listen. Once again, we're just saying listen on all IP version 4 interfaces for connections. All right. So now, when you want to go into where the other files are, you go into etc dev, and then under here there's a confd. So that's where we were just a second ago, there editing that file. But in the directory where the Doevcot conf file is, there's actually another directory, and in there is where they now have many of their configuration files. So here's where you'll find things like 10-mail, 10-auth, 10-master, some of those other ones that you will have to edit. Once again, be very careful. Just follow what the directions are showing you, and you should be fine. We'll get out of here. Okay. Let me just start it. And I've already configured the file, but I'm going to start it up again. Doevcot, nope, wrong place. Doevcot, restart. All right. So what we have right now is an MTA server willing to accept incoming mail to exchange with other MTAs. You know, it could be Exchange servers, send mail servers, right? Those MTAs are willing. We have one configured, that's Postfix. And the delivery agent that will actually take the mail from the MTA, in this case Postfix, and send it to us as a client is Doevcot, and we have both of those set up and ready to go. So what I will do is now go over to our client. Oh, there are, oh, by the way, and we did change myslcc.org zone and add that information in there too. Very, very important. Don't forget that. The one thing I will do now is add a user. We're going to, just because I want to have a couple of users to show you, once you have it configured, I've done exactly what you see in those files, those two configuration files that I'm going to give you. I've done exactly that. And the only thing I'm going to do right now is just add a new user. I'll add Jane. And then we'll password Jane. And we'll give Jane the password of work. And then I have to switch over and log in as Jane. Okay. I go back. You have to make sure you log in because her directory structure has to be set up for her. Mail is saved in a couple of different places on the system, but users, right? Users who have an account on the system, their mail is saved in the mail dir directory inside their home directory, and that's created for them, right, when their account is created and they log in. So it's important that you actually have your new users log in. Now let's go over here. And first thing I'm going to do is add a Jane account to XP because we don't have a Jane account. Let's go ahead and add Jane in here. New user, Jane, work, password never expires, create, close. And I'll log off and I'm going to actually log in as Jane. So this is the first time Jane's logging in. And what we'll do is configure Jane's email client. In this case, we're going to use Outlook and point it to our Linux server. So we put in Jane as the name, her email address, and as long as you have DNS set up correctly, this should work for you. So Jane at myslcc.org. That's her email address. Okay, this is where we need to make some changes. We're not going to use POP3. We're going to use IMAP because it's a better protocol. And it's asking me, well, what's your incoming, IMAP POP3 server? Well, in our case, we're going to use imap.myslcc.org as our incoming, and our outgoing is going to be smtp.myslcc.org. So it's the same box. They're both at the MTA and MDA, but because we've configured DNS correctly with CNAMEs, we can use that. It's a little more logical, a little easier for everybody to understand. And Jane's password is work. And we'll go next and finish. We get a little message here. Do you want to view available folders? I say yes. And here are the folders, and you'll notice that I have my local folder, which is a nice little email coming from Outlook. Very nice of them. And what I'm going to do now is actually create an email, and I'm going to send it to student at myslcc.org. From Jane, and we'll have a nice little hello, and we'll send it. Alrighty, so now let's go see if it's actually working. Now remember, we sent that this is going to that just went to our Postfix server. That's where that went to. And now we're going to switch over to student and configure student correctly. So we have to do the same thing because student doesn't have his email set up either right now. Where is it? There it goes. So student student at myslcc.org. It's the IMAP, myslcc.org, and smtp.myslcc.org. Always remember, switch it to IMAP because that's what we're setting it up for. Probably would respond because we told it to respond to POP3 also, so, but there might be some configuration issues in there. Oh, that's not his password. His password is CSIS. Okay, and let's go in here. And sure enough, there's an email from Jane. I don't know why we have 2 emails from Jane. It must have been something I tested earlier. That's interesting that it would show up again. Must have been in there. So here we have our email from Jane. I'll reply. Hi, student. How are you? And we'll send. Once again, you can go in here, you can check, you can even say send and receive to see what's going on. We'll flip back over there. Switch user, go back to Jane. And check Jane, and sure enough, there is our email reply from student. So Jane sent the email to student using Postfix or SMTP, the protocol. It was delivered to student by an MDA, in this case Doevcot, using IMAP. And then student responded back to Jane also using SMTP with Postfix. So that's a real legitimate email system we have going here. So far we've set up DNS, we've set up DHCP, Samba, FTP, Apache, and now we have email going also, all from one Linux machine that we have configured. So your next project is to set this up and send me a screenshot of it. So I'm going to allow you the time to actually go through and configure it, and then send me a screenshot of a successful email taking place. Actually 2 screenshots. I want to see a screenshot coming from Jane's perspective or whoever you create, and student's perspective. Right? I want to see both of those, and that will let me know that you've actually pulled it off. Pretty cool stuff. It's challenging, but it is a lot of fun. All right. Close this. And we're done. Thanks, everyone. Take care.